at Ronnie's. Every day's a deal with $5 lunch specials and a 10% student discount. So come on down to Ronnie's at 5280 Green Street in the South End, just off of Queen Street, and experience authentic curry and roti for yourself.
Hi, my name's Peter Collins. I'm a federal prisoner and I've been inside for around a quarter century. I'm currently litigating 5 cases against the Correctional Services of Canada in federal court. Hopefully they have some impact on the way CSC conducts itself. My problem is I have no legal training, and CSC's confiscated all my digital files and my computer in what appears to be an effort to hinder my access to the courts. Our prison library is absurd, and our access to legal material is hopeless. And CSC interferes with and prevents legal phone calls, access to Commissioner of Oaths, blocks, loses, and delays my mail. My hope is that through this announcement I can get some law books or course outlines or any kind of books with administrative law, legal writing, or any materials related to administrative law, civil litigation, legal writing, and research. If you have any material like that you'd like to share or you'd like to contact me, you can do so through Rittenhouse, Rittenhouse, 489 College Street, Suite 500, Toronto, Ontario, M6G 1A5. There's a website called buriedaliveillustrations.com. All right, thank you.
Hello, this is Jose Gonzalez, and you're listening to CKDU on 88.1 FM Halifax.
How low were you willing to go before you reach all?
You are listening to the Unified Field with your host, Mr. Justin Brown.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Paul Hellyer interview on the Unified Field, CKDU 88.1 FM, Saturday night.
That these were real people and real places to me. And I said, this is not fiction, this is real. And while I was reading it, my nephew, Philip, came along and said, what are you reading? And I told him. And he said, well, I'm a skeptic. I said, well, it's a free country, you can be skeptical if you want.
Right.
So he went home. A couple of days later, he phoned me and said, I was just talking to the general, and I told him what you were reading, and he said, every word of it is true and more.
Wow.
And the general was a retired United States Air Force general that he had met because he was in the aviation business for a while.
Okay.
And so when I had completed the book, and with that affirmation, I decided that, hey, I'd better go public because there are some really great issues involved here. You know, the major issues like how is the United States Air Force treating the visitors? Are they trying to shoot them down, or are they treating them well, or what are they doing? And are they likely to start an intergalactic war? And these are things that the public have a right to know and to discuss. And so I decided before I went public, though, I would talk to the general personally. And I had met him at an aviation display some 2 or 3 years earlier. And so Philip gave him a heads up that I would be calling, and I gave him a call, and he said his first words to me were, every word of the book is true and more. And then we spent about 20 minutes talking about the more, which included the fact that there had been face-to-face talks between United States officials and visitors from some other planet somewhere else in the cosmos. And with that affirmation, I decided, I'm convinced enough I have to go public. So I did. And that's how it all got started. And it was, interestingly enough, it was just a week before I got married. My second wife, my first wife, had died the year before, and had a happy marriage for 59 years. But my second wife, I asked her before I made the speech and told her, I think this will just be a one-off thing. And on that basis, she, I guess, a little bit reluctantly allowed me to go along.
Right.
And those were famous last words. And because the information, once I had gone public, the information started coming in from all over the world. Documents of all kinds, books I have received and read dozens of books on the subject, each one almost more fascinating than the previous one.
Right.
And I just got one in the mail yesterday that will probably be the most fascinating yet.
Which one's that, Paul?
Well, I can't even remember the name of it because it's just sitting on my desk at home.
Right.
But it's sent to me by Paula Harris, who I mentioned in the book and who has been a friend and mentor in this whole operation.
Yeah, she's fascinating, isn't she?
Absolutely fascinating. And she has broken many stories in this area, and is one of the most knowledgeable people I know. So since then, I say that I was probably in kindergarten 5 years ago when I went public, and I'm probably grade 4 or 5 now. I think by the time I read these 2 books that I have just received, that maybe I'll be grade 6.
Right.
It's a slow process, and there's so much. It's like a whole. When you say a whole new world, that isn't. It's even bigger than that.
Yeah.
And there's so much to absorb, and as you know, I call it the broader reality. And I'm speaking about it now. I often get many requests, and being a little bolder all the time because I think the cover-up has got to end, and the sooner the better as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you made these public statements, Paul, in the beginning. So much has happened since you've made these statements as well. I mean, look, Stephen Greer and the Stevens Bassett and Greer with their disclosure project and the National Press Club, in this last 2 or 3 weeks in particular, with the National Press Club conference covered by CNN streaming of governments and generals going on the record talking about UFOs interacting with nuclear silos and disengaging and disarming them. We've got Leslie Kane coming out. She's got her new book, UFOs, Generals, Governments, and Pilots or whatnot go on the record, totally backed by Michio Kaku, right? The world's leading astrophysicist.
I just finished reading it.
Oh, what a lady. What a lady she is. She is a real hero to ufology and truth in general. So much has happened since you made these public statements. Have you... What do you think is going on here? Is there some core group of... This is my insinuation, is that there's a group of core individuals, some kind of shadow government, you make mention of it, that's controlling this truth embargo. What is this all about? What does it mean? Do you have any opinions yourself after 5 years of this?
Oh, absolutely. Incidentally, I'm going to Washington on the 31st to meet with Stephen Greer and some other people.
Amazing.
About exotic fuels.
Great.
And as far as the press conference is concerned recently, I know both Robert Salas and Colonel Chuck Falk. Halls, rather, personally. And they're both mentioned in my chapter.
Yep.
I've interviewed them both, and they got a lot of attention, which I'm glad they did, because they were putting the scene sort of in the realm of threat or perceived threat to national security.
Yeah.
And I don't really believe it is a threat to national security. But I think there is a broad picture there, and maybe I can paint a little bit of it for you.
Please.
The visitors from other stars have probably been coming for millennia.
Right.
But never in the numbers, the kinds of numbers that they have been for the last 60 years.
Yeah.
And what I think has happened, and I'm pretty confident of this, is that as soon as the United States detonated its first atomic bomb, that the people in other parts of the cosmos said, hey, this is a threat to the whole cosmos, and it's certainly a threat to planet Earth, and it's going to wreck it. And we've got to start taking an interest before it's too late. And so they started coming down here in greater numbers, and then in many cases in waves, as Leslie Kean has described. And in the process, I think they have documented probably every atomic base in the world of all of the countries and every stockpile. In other words, they have a complete map of the world capacity to wreck itself. And whether the dismantling of the temporary dismantling of the missiles that Salas describes or not, whether that was a deliberate attempt to see if they had the capacity to shut them down, or whether it just happened as a result of the electromagnetic field that the vehicles themselves create, I don't really know, and I don't think probably the United States Air Force knows either, because there was never any conclusive evidence as to what had actually happened. But for me, it's not a bad thing. I fear Earthlings more than I fear the visitors, because I think they're benign. If they were not benign, they could have taken us over any time, in the last 50 or 60 years, and certainly in the earlier part of that period before the United States Air Force developed weapons based on their own technology that allows them to shoot them down, which I think they can do at the present time. So they were benign. They were really, in my opinion, interested in helping us. They don't like what we're doing to our planet. They don't like us polluting our rivers and oceans and air, and they think we should do something about it. It appears that they have some sort of agreement of non-intervention, except through us, through individuals here on Earth. And one of the individuals that I name in my book is Jim Sparks, who is probably one of the best-known abductees, and really hated these people in the early days for what they did to him, but then later became a friend and understood what they were all about, and is now, I guess if in military terms, I would say he's an agent for the kind of change that they're really hoping to see here on Earth. They're hoping that we will stop polluting the world, and they certainly want us to get rid of our atomic weapons and never use another one, because from the way they paint it, the use of these things is unthinkable. And yet we have countries here on Earth who have not yet renounced first use. And this, in my opinion, is well, I don't know, criminal is not too strong a word, because we should have learned that that they're too disastrous, and they have some effects that we apparently have not been able to monitor yet. So we've just got to stop trying to wreck our own house and start cooperating and evolving a higher morality and spirituality here on Earth, closer, I think, to that displayed by some of the people who are coming to visit us.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same as you, and I don't really want to sound too new age, but I can almost feel it in my bones, because you can see it all around you every day. People being more in tune with themselves, with nature, composting, recycling, taking responsible, reaction for their actions, taking responsibility for their actions. So that I think is really taking place.
Yeah, well, I'm not willing to put a label on it.
No, exactly.
I don't deny your use of New Age. I'm a very religious person. People say, well, what does this mean for your religion? I said, nothing. That God has children in other parts of the cosmos the same way as he has us. And but obviously some of them are more evolved spiritually than we are. Mm-hmm. We're a primitive bunch, and we've got to change. And so we're, through people like Sparks, the message comes that, in effect, we have to practice what I call in my book the golden rule. We have to start treating each other as we would want to be treated. And if we did that, then, of course, we could revolutionize the world and would have a happy, just kind of situation where people, regardless of their race, color, or creed, could could get along and